The wedding hall in a quiet Ohio town looked like something out of a dream. White roses climbed tall glass vases, candles flickered along the aisle, and sunlight streamed through the high windows, casting a warm glow over the guests. Soft piano music floated in the air as everyone settled into their seats, smiling, whispering, and adjusting their clothes. It was supposed to be a perfect afternoon, carefully planned, beautifully timed, and full of joy. At the front of the hall, the groom stood tall in his charcoal suit, trying to slow his breathing. He smiled at familiar faces, but his eyes kept drifting toward the entrance. The bride, radiant in her ivory gown, noticed his nerves and squeezed his hand reassuringly. "Relax," she whispered. "This is our moment." The officiant began speaking, his calm voice echoing gently. He spoke about love, commitment, and new beginnings. Guests listened attentively, some wiping away early tears. Everything was moving exactly as planned, until the officiant reached the familiar words. "If anyone here has reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace." At that precise moment, the heavy wooden doors at the back of the hall creaked open. The piano music stopped mid-note. Every head turned. Standing in the doorway was a small boy, no older than 9. He wore a slightly oversized hoodie and worn-out sneakers that didn't belong in a place like this. In his arms, carefully cradled, was a newborn baby wrapped tightly in a pale blue blanket. The baby was asleep, her tiny face peaceful and unaware of the dozens of eyes now fixed on her. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Some guests leaned forward, others gasped softly. A few assumed it was a mistake, that the child had wandered in by accident. But the boy didn't look lost. His hands trembled slightly, yet his posture was steady, as if he had practiced this moment over and over in his mind. He took one careful step forward, then another. The bride's heart began to race. She glanced at the groom, expecting confusion, but instead, she saw something else on his face. Recognition. His smile faded, replaced by a stunned, pale expression. "That's," he whispered, barely audible. The boy walked slowly down the aisle, the long path making the moment stretch unbearably. The baby stirred softly, and the boy adjusted the blanket with surprising gentleness. Guests watched in silence, unsure whether to stand, speak, or intervene. No one moved. As the boy came closer, the groom's memories rushed back. Late nights in a small apartment building, a neighbor's child who used to wave at him from the stairs, a woman who had once meant something but disappeared from his life without explanation. His chest tightened. The boy finally stopped just a few feet away. Up close, his face showed exhaustion beyond his years, dark circles under his eyes, lips pressed together as if holding back fear. Yet there was also determination there, something strong and unshakable. The officiant stepped back, unsure what to say. The bride slowly let go of the groom's hand, her confusion mixing with concern. She looked at the baby, then at the boy, and then back at her soon-to-be husband. The room was completely silent now. No music, no whispers, not even the sound of breathing. And then, with a small but steady voice, the boy opened his mouth to speak. The boy's voice trembled at first, but he forced himself to keep speaking. "My name is Ethan," he said, holding the baby a little closer. "This is my baby sister, Lily." His words echoed through the silent hall, each one landing heavier than the last. Guests leaned in, barely daring to breathe. He looked up at the groom, his eyes wide yet brave. "Our mom is in the hospital. She got very sick after Lily was born." His throat tightened, and for a moment everyone thought he might stop. Instead, he swallowed hard and continued. "She asked me to bring Lily here. She said her dad would be here today." A wave of realization swept across the room. The groom felt the floor shift beneath him. His hands clenched into fists as memories he had buried long ago rose sharply to the surface. Years ago, there had been a brief relationship, full of confusion and poor timing. When it ended, he had walked away, believing that chapter of his life was closed forever. No phone calls, no letters, no answers. And now, standing in front of him, was a child carrying the truth he never knew. "Ethan," the groom whispered, his voice breaking. The boy nodded. "You used to live upstairs from us," he said quietly. "You fixed my bike once." A few guests wiped their eyes as the simplicity of the memory cut through the tension. The bride felt her heart pound as she watched the man she loved struggle to find words. She had known there were parts of his past he didn't often talk about, but she had never imagined this. Still, as she looked at the boy's shaking arms and the sleeping newborn, anger didn't come first, compassion did. She stepped forward and gently placed a hand under the baby's blanket, helping support Lily's weight. The boy looked at her in surprise. "You did the right thing," the bride said softly, her voice calm and warm. "That was very brave." Ethan's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't let them fall. The groom finally moved, dropping to one knee so he was eye level with the boy. His eyes were wet now, his carefully planned wedding composure completely gone. "I didn't know," he said honestly. "If I had known, I would have been there." Ethan studied his face, searching for truth. "Mom said you're a good man," he replied. "She said you'd understand." Those words shattered what little control the groom had left. Tears slid down his cheeks as he reached out, hesitating before gently touching Lily's tiny hand. The baby stirred, her fingers curling instinctively around his. A quiet sob rippled through the crowd. The officiant stepped aside, recognizing that this moment was bigger than any ceremony. Time seemed to slow as the reality settled in. This wasn't an interruption. It was a revelation. The bride took the groom's hand again, squeezing it firmly. She looked at him with steady eyes and said, loud enough for those nearby to hear, "We can handle this together." In that instant, the wedding transformed. What was meant to be a celebration of two lives joining became something deeper, a moment where truth, responsibility, and unexpected family stood at the center of the aisle, changing everything forever. The silence in the hall slowly softened, replaced by the quiet sound of sniffles and moved breaths. The groom stood up, still holding the bride's hand, and looked around at the guests who moments ago had been strangers sharing a celebration. Now they were witnesses to something far more real than a perfect wedding script. "Ethan," he said gently, "where is your mom right now?" "At Mercy Hospital," the boy replied. "She told me not to be scared. She said today was important." The groom nodded, as if steadying himself with each word. He turned to the officiant, who gave a small, understanding smile and stepped back without question. Then he faced the guests. "I think," he said slowly, voice firm despite the tears, "that before we continue, we need to do the right thing." The bride squeezed his hand again. Her dress brushed the floor as she stepped forward and knelt beside Ethan. "You must be tired," she said kindly. "You've carried a lot today." Ethan's shoulders finally relaxed, for the first time since entering the hall. He looked like a child again. "I was scared I wouldn't find you," he admitted. "You did," the groom said softly. "And I'm here now." He carefully took Lily into his arms. The room seemed to exhale all at once. The baby shifted, then settled, calm and warm against his chest. Something inside him changed in that instant. Not fear, not panic, but a quiet sense of responsibility he had never felt so clearly before. An older woman in the front row stood up, wiping her eyes. Then another guest rose, and another. Soon, the entire room was standing, not in protest, but in support. The bride turned to the officiant. "Can we pause?" she asked. He nodded. "Love doesn't run on schedules," he said gently. The groom looked at Ethan. "We're going to the hospital after this," he promised. "All of us." "Really?" Ethan asked, hope flickering in his eyes. "Really," the bride said with a warm smile. "Family goes together." They didn't cancel the wedding. They changed it. The officiant invited everyone to sit again, and the couple stood not alone, but with Ethan beside them. Lily slept peacefully in the groom's arms as vows were spoken, vows that now carried deeper meaning than anyone could have imagined that morning. When they said, "I do," the room erupted in applause mixed with tears. Later that evening, instead of heading to a reception, the wedding party walked into the hospital together, flowers, laughter, and a quiet sense of purpose trailing behind them. In a small room on the maternity floor, a tired woman looked up as the door opened. Ethan ran to her side. "Mom," he said, smiling. "I found him." The groom stepped forward, heart pounding. "I'm here," he said simply. She smiled through tears. "I knew you would be." That day didn't just join two people in marriage. It reunited a broken story, gave a brave little boy his childhood back, and welcomed a newborn into a family that had been waiting, without even knowing it, to begin.